So we were having a cup of coffee with butter and cream. And this is essentially what I do every single day. And I'm going to be going into my walking, right? Going into my walking. We'll record the first 20 minutes. It's nothing exciting. What am I doing different? What am I doing the same? So there's a lot of bad role models out here now. You look at this Durian Ryder. Seen this guy? This is what my everyday looks like. I walked like this. I start casually and then I just pick up pace and I'm booking. And I'll do this for 6 to 8 hours, and then when I'm prompted to, I'll get out there and walk with other people. But this is I was called the garage body back in the day. And thank you for that title, because that was a real, as I look back nostalgically, man, was I shredded, all natural, never touched any substances. I look at this guy, Durian Ryder, and he's such a terrible role model. You know, he's such, and these people meet their end, like Liver King. They get consumed by themselves, and if a protocol doesn't work long term, if you have to do PEDs and then just make excuses, like you can't just leave that out. Like sometimes I do testosterone, sometimes I don't. It's only $35 in Australia. Why wouldn't I do it? I mean, come on, look how ripped I am. Look how ripped I am. All I do is eat fruit. I'm a junkie. It's like I might as well be taking meth right in front of y'all, but throw me a few bones. Poor role model. Poor role model for this Skeleton City guy, which I love your energy, man. But you're not getting what you need, and you just broke your collarbone on a fall. And I can tell you, if you were a little more sturdy and a little more dense, we're not getting into masculine or demasculation or any of this BS that's going on. We emasculate one another as it is, man. A tribe that survives makes each other strong, teaches each other. Well, everyone in this culture rips everyone off, and we have become the globalist effort against ourselves, humanity. The anthropological aspect to this. Someday they're going to dig us up and see exactly where we went wrong. Well, I'm able to do a lot of body weight movements again. My weight is back down. I fell off. I had to do a lot of study and research, a lot of reminding of what was real, what was true, what was fundamental, and what's being left out with these diets and the dietary coaching aspect is oddly the nutrients. Like, let's look at the nutrients. Let's look at how we can bring up your Heme iron levels, your copper levels, fundamental, to keep you from having strokes, to keep you from becoming anemic, which sadly, that's in Durian Ryder's future. There's no way he's taking in, not to mention he's not taking in enough protein, and that's why he's doing test, right? And then lies about it and says, I could do it with test, I could do it without test. Dude, you're looking really old these days and you're not even 50 years old. Let's go over positives though. I love your energy actually. And I love the energy of the carb community, the people who are these sugar dieters, right? I love the energy. I remember having that energy back in the early 90s. I never thought that I could have that energy doing keto and drinking, and I'd done this for 2 years and I'd gotten results, but then I'm like, well, is this just another one of those diets that just depletes the shit out of you? And I was going down there with Skeleton City and Durian Ryder. I was heading under 150 pounds doing carnivore. I'm like, what the F am I doing? And you know what? I might have jumped on board doing the high sugar diet, but the only thing that makes that work is PEDs. Otherwise, your body is not going to be able to uptake that sugar so rapidly and maintain your hormone balance. And I found the solution, and it's beef liver. You know, you see how the evil side, Satan, if you will, if you want to call it that, yeah, I mean, it's all signs point to it, or her, but Satana, hell, if you want to get into Jason Rizzo-Giorgiani, who also doesn't like Jordan Peterson, by the way, but Jordan Peterson even has good attributes. I don't see the total negative in anyone. I think when you found the solution and you just try it, you will be amazed. And man, if Durian Ryder would just open himself up and eat an 1/8 pound of beef liver every single day, or start taking algae, nori, and maybe some different mushrooms, right? Maybe some kelp, things like that he could do. He's got the money now, you know? But he reminds me of a junkie, and he reminds me that sugar can become very addicting. And I think there's some other things going on with him. I really do. But I like the message. I like the energy. From the second that I watch them, I can tell whether or not people are playing or plaguing on negatives. See, I was doing this same thing back in 2007. I erased my own videos. I erased my own hubris. I saw what was coming. I erased 350 videos where I'd done all this shit before. So this is old hat. I was on the TRX just like I am now. It's the most fundamental core to any viable exercise program. We as a collective have created this. But this is what I do every day. I do it all through the day. And this is what I do. I'm bored walking out there. I've walked out there for years. Every step, every track, every mile, every ugly ass face that I see walking around the beach, doing this in Pasadena, doing this in Palo Alto. I've done doing this up in Northern California, just walking miles and miles around these same tracks. Miles. So I've done 1,600 miles doing this. And I love cycling. If I could afford a bike right now, I would. I'm not even opposed to test or doing, so don't get me wrong. Like, all respect Durian Ryder, all respect Skeleton City. I don't even look at people who look like they're anorexic and think, that's ridiculous. The guy's hopping on a bike. He's maintaining a good relationship with his wife. He's shifting and taking responsibility for when he's recovering and repairing himself and going, I can't do that on just sugar. These people aren't idiots. Durian Ryder's not an idiot. This Cole character isn't an idiot, but he's off. And he knows it. And he's trying to remedy it. And I'm telling you, try eating an 1/8 pound of beef liver every single day. Don't overdo it. Don't add into the hyperbole. Don't get greedy. Earn enough, right? And say that's good enough, and don't try to create some sort of weird franchise out of rewriting the Bible, man. Because some people that I don't respect, that I've learned to respect, is like Mark Smellybell. I don't respect him as a human being. I don't respect him as a man. I don't respect him as a fitness influencer. I think he's a capitalist, and it kind of makes me gag. But what I always think about the positives. What do I respect? I respect the people that he brings on and the fact that he can be influenced in a positive way, but it's all about money. That's all. That causes me to disrespect people. Was I like that at one time? I've become like that in the past and become corrupted, and that's why I burned away all my videos. The best times or the hardest times is the struggle, but you don't have to struggle forever. And that's what I got to. That's why I gained back such a surplus of weight. Though I may not look like it, I'm 185 pounds today, and I'm dropping back down, and your body will tell you. And so I didn't rebound. I kept dropping under 150 pounds, and I didn't want that. And I was looking closer to Skeleton City. And I'm like, this is not what I'm going for. Probably if I kept posting, people would go, oh, I want to be so skinny that you have no muscle on your body, and that's awesome. Isn't that weird? For me, what do I want to represent? I want to represent health, vitality, and not looking back at what you were, looking forward, not chastising each other for what you were. So when I say things about people, I hold in contention the highest aspirations for humanity and for those particular people. Mark Bell as well. I don't have any enemies. You can see when people are imbalanced, right? You can see like Joe Rogan. So I start like this. I just sort of hobble along. My feet are killing me because I walk 10 miles every day as it is, at least 8. It's probably because of the tile, but I've walked outside like this and there's not really that much of a difference. And then at about 3 or 4 miles, I start to ask myself, okay, I got this systemic blood flow. Do I want to go in the other room and press out some TRX? And what I've been doing lately is I'm doing one heck of a lot of lower body. I'm doing a lot of squats, even working a little bit of hamstrings in there with TRX, hamstring curls, and some other more exotic exercises. But every time I start to feel, like right now, I just felt my metabolism kicking in. What did I wake up with? I'm going to be honest with you. A diet Dr. Pepper, phenylalanine, right? An excitatory neurotransmitter, an aromatic amino acid. The ocular center is saturated with tyrosine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine. But if you have any allergies, don't do it. For me, when I'm trying to ignite, I did this a couple weeks ago and just popped it off and lost some weight this way. And then there was something wrong. Something I was missing fundamentally. Now, I'm all good. I'm good to go. As soon as you pull back on those nutrients and not understand the vitality, the need to take them in every day, that this is what's churning the macronutrients. This is what's driving the thermogenic aspect of being able to burn these calories, that this is thermodynamics, that you need to become dynamic and stay dynamic. Well, when you get older and you've done this, I've done the YouTube thing. I used to get so many comments down below, 60, 70 comments of your body, how the fuck did you do that, blah, 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 right? Hubris, right? Almost 5 stars, if not 5 stars, back in the rating days to show you how long ago it was. Which essentially exists today. They just phase it in and out. So for me, I do gradual intensity training, all day training. And even when I've worked, I follow this. Like when I've worked a job where I won a lawsuit proving that I worked 17 and a half hours a day. The lawyer brought it up to me. Right? And said, wow, when you said you worked 12 and a half hours every day, I was like a little suspicious. Then we looked into your records. You actually worked 17 and a half hours a day. So I got the greater portion of that suit. Right? The same thing happened recently. Like history just repeats, and you need to see the cycles. You need to see the numerological reoccurrence, but you need to see it more as a blueprint, as a telegraphing of what's coming next. Well, that's been the thing that I've been focusing in on for years, and started Esoteric Principles of Light and started posting up on that. And that gets huge amounts of traffic. esotericprinciplesoflight.blogspot.com. Got over 500,000 views, and when you're talking about esoteric arcane subjects, thinking that this is very fringe, very niche, right? I got 30,000 views last month on an obscure blog. It's been running for 12 years. Almost 12 years. And that's what I care about, is what's not in some little anorexic girl paracosum, right? Like Brian Johnson. Do you want to look like a teenage girl? Is that what you're after? Because you look like a teenage Jewish girl who's pissed off that her daddy won't buy her a violin. Is that what you're after, dude? So, I mean, sipping olive oil is not going to do it. I take in olive oil. I think it's fundamental. I've done a very similar diet with similar results as Durian Rider, and this is going back into the 90s, where I'd be eating the cornflakes. I'd be taking in, the Perdican diet is heavily based around that. They did have a protein bias, right? But there were times where I didn't have the money for the protein, so I'd cut way back. And I wouldn't eat processed foods, but I'd eat like the Entenmann's pastries, which were almost exclusively, there was almost no fat, had pretty low protein. If people remember those Entenmann's, I would eat one of those a day. I'd eat a lot of bread. I'd eat a lot of cereals. But the rice is something that's always been something that fascinated me, because when you are in really good shape, regardless of whether you got there by going into ketosis or producing this FGF fibroblast, FGF21, the body has this resilience in secreting hormones or hormone-like substances that are going to spar your muscle mass if you're not taking in enough. That's all that's happening. Your body's recognizing there's not enough of something. And that's why I think Durian Rider's behavior exhibits a heightened state of anxiety and paranoia. And you can see it. You can see him rapidly aging, but he's in that narcissistic truth bracket where it's like, dude, pretty soon people aren't going to be that impressed by you because your skin's starting to sag down, and it's happening very rapidly. And people should be more concerned about that, right? And I've been that way. I've gone through that recently. If you look back at my videos last year where I wasn't getting the nutrients, my skin was just literally like hanging down. I was 155 pounds with my skin hanging down. Is that what we're going for? No. You see 90-year-olds who have tight, supple skin and they're walking, right? So some of the people that I say look at as a role model are Clarence Bass, even Frank Zane to some extent, but he was touted as a T3 junkie, right? And then you have many other people, even like Larry Scott and some old bodybuilders, but Jack LaLanne. And I actually have a lot of hope that Durian Rider could be one of those types of people if he would open up his repertoire, if he would open up his portfolio and say, look, there's room for, if we have it available, okay, this is one thing. If we're just foragers and the only thing we do have available on the road, on the forage, is this sort of paleo diet where we're taking in the berries, we're taking in the nuts. When this first happened, I didn't know what the fuck people were talking about, and I didn't care. You want to know why? Because I was more ripped, more solid, and had muscle on my body doing a G&G or gluconeogenic diet. Would I proselytize or pitch that now? No, it was very difficult. I'm not even going to tell you to try to do it. But what I found is what people are touting as something that they shouldn't do. And I'm like, no, I did that for years. I did that and reached the same levels of imbalance that you are doing a standalone, right? And I, like I said, on my prior other channels, I even say, I'm going to try a standalone. And I tried it for a week and I was like, not even a week. I was like cutting back on my protein to go into it. And I'm like, this doesn't work. When your body wants protein first, it wants amino acids. That's the goal. And if you're going to be tricking your body and starving it when there's plenty of high protein sources available, you want to build yourself up. That's why I was trying in a live last night when Durian Rider went live stream from China or something like that. I'm asking him, dude, can you lift? It doesn't look like you have any upper body strength, right? which, you know, if you're going to, so, I mean, I've known a lot of people who are cyclists. Cyclists abuse steroids. They abuse them, and then they lie about it. But like the bodybuilders of old school, right? I mean, Lance Armstrong kind of popped the cork on that, right? Where it's like the gas bus, and then people would look at me like, dude, I'm a high level trainer at the time anyway. Why wouldn't I know about gas bus and all the other things that are out there? You know, insulin growth factors and mechano factors. I've done all that shit too. I was completely natural for the first 41 years of my life. I achieved all of this 5' proportion with having a 28-inch waist and just being jacked and being able to go in and lift huge amounts of weight compared to my body weight. I would go in and curl 85-pound dumbbells for reps when I was 163 pounds. People were like, what? And when I'd tell people I weigh 163 pounds, they'd go, no, you don't. Your scale's broken. You weigh 205. That's where you want to get. And they're like, you have bones? Your bones must be magnesium dense. And that was the whole point. And even high protein foods had more. They offered more. Now everything's stripped down. Everybody wants to make a buck off everything now. So I don't want this to run too late. But this is just a superfluous warm-up before I really get into walking and training. So I got all the way up to 205. I rebounded, you could say, but I really didn't. I thought about it, and I went, you know what? I'm just not getting what I need. I don't know what I need. In order for me to recalibrate, I couldn't even get out of bed for months. In order for me to recalibrate, I came back to Monterey walking, right? Focusing, trying to get it back in, thinking some capricious God or some mechanism is going to show me the way. And it doesn't happen through due process like we want to think it does. It happens quite differently, but it eventually does happen. We have to want it, need it, right? It doesn't happen on your time. Right, but oddly, it does happen around you. It manifests for you, right? My back's a little bit tweaked. I gotta, just stiff. I gotta start stretching and going into that type of thing. Davis book on stretch, amazing. Page 206, check it out. A lot of self-PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. And that's what we want to do. We want to take ourselves to a heightened state of awareness. Now, the beauty about Durian Ryder is he doesn't lie about what he's doing, right? He's talking about it. He's doing it. And I don't think that he is a dishonest person. And I do like his energy. I think when you're closer to 50 and you're flexing and looking cocky, like, I mean, it's one thing to display yourself and to show it like I do, right? And go back and look at my videos where I'm a fat fuck. Was I not making fun of myself? Can people not see that? Do they not see other people have the depth of humor and understanding of philosophy and absurdity? Do they all think they're fucking genius and they're watching everyone else and judging them? That seems to be like this westernized disease. No, you're not some elite person. And once we realize that we're in this together, it becomes a collective, an amalgamation, a chimera, a homogeneous information highway. And that's what AI is taking the lead on, whether you like it or not. It had to be a non-human, right? The singularity, the event, the reset, that had to be a non-human. That's just a human being, Klaus Schwab and Let Math. That's them, their interpretation. Thinking that they're these stuffed shirts at the top of the heap. They're actually the heap, the pyramid's turned upside down and they're on the bottom. They're the bottom feeders. We're the ones making the change, right? And that's why I'm doing this video, and that's why these videos need to be done desperately. But they come in the time that they need to, right? The information, the computational system, the Konrad Zuse, Alan Turing, Jacobo Grinberg, right? Let's not forget about that weird shit. But it does get into a lot of other esoteric areas, and that's why I try to really separate what I talk about, particularly on this channel. And I often do too many videos that are just breaching that, because that's what my mind's on. It's on Operation Gladio. It's on the Ninth Circle, Kevin A. and Sean Atwood, right? Those interviews. The Underclass podcast, Operation GCD, right? Many others. My mind is on not just speculative, but looking at the information of this fucking freak Aquino and how that's still going on today. Michael Aquino, evil motherfucker, to where human beings can experience such deprivation. And a lot of these experiments go right back. You look into Joseph Farrell, Catherine Austin Fitts, these people are very relevant. The information that they're talking about is more relevant. So when you're talking about diet and you act like that's the most important thing, no, you bloated fish. That's not what's fucking most important. Open your fucking eyes up and see what's going on around the world and start making a change, make a difference. And so I'm even looking at the fact that, you know, if I'm touting beef liver and it's the only thing that's available, the only thing that's affordable, here we go, you know, right? We got 4, that's an entire month's worth. That's how little beef liver you need to do. That's a month. This has lasted me almost a month. That's my son's, right? Then we got some coffee. Unfortunately, it's just the coffee left, but the coffee seems to really be something that drives the metabolism. Then I've had these eggs for a whole month. I'm eating far less, right? That's my son's. This is the beef liver right here. And then there's the chicken, and there's a Diet Dr. Pepper. There's my cheese, there's my butter, there's my heavy cream, and that's what really primes the system. Just to show you, this is no BS. This is what I'm doing, because the results are going to be phenomenal. It's going to be very similar to the results that I showed. I just had a couple pictures that I post up on Rogue Beast Warrior. Couple pictures. I erased all the videos. I used to do before and after movies 10, 12, 15 years ago, showing people how to do this. But it's all hubris. It's all done in temerity. You should be ashamed of yourself for thinking that way these days, when the shit is literally hitting the fan. I mean, all this weird UFO shit, this whole Jake Barber, Lou Elizondo fucking psyop crap, you know, Roth Coulthart. I follow all that stuff and have been watching it and know what's happening. They think that we are the profane, we're the terrorists, right? And that we are invading their selfish little pursuits. Sounds like my ex-wife. Like, I just want to live in an illusion. I want to think that I have my cake and eat it too. You don't mind being an operative, a Manchurian candidate, and actually being activated to work against everything and even sacrifice your kids, do you? And then everyone else has to jump around and juggle and keep everything together, right? And play the clown show. Well, that ain't happening anymore. And who's really in charge, you'd be really surprised to know. You'd be really surprised to know what's really in charge. Because all of this is charging toward the charge, the energy that is at the center, at the nexus, an energy system. And you don't sacrifice other people by doing this. You sacrifice your time, your efforts, but to build it up, it takes purity. It takes the semblance of purity. And am I saying I'm pure in doing that? That's the problem with social media. That's the problem with today. Is that if you talk about something, oh, you have to be an expert. You can't get a PhD in purity. You can't get qualified as purity because we live in an impure environment. And you have to seek it. You have to make it active. No mother is pure. No father is pure. No person is pure, right? But purity still exists. And we use it as a top tier in everything. Even a drug addict wants the pure state of a particular drug. It's just, I mean, the perfect example these days is the mouse utopia and the rat experiments, right? Is that when the old adage is the rats will go right for the cocaine water. Everybody's an addict. But then when they do these studies again, more recently, what if they have everything they need? What if Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And Kluchik's wheel that Cliff High bases all his information on. What if these rats, these mice, get everything they want, desire, need, require? They self-regulate. And we have been living without our basic needs or requirements for quite a long time. The rat in these studies, and the rat just being wild, has what it needs. It doesn't require us, right? It doesn't require us. But they build up defenses just like plants do, like secondary plant metabolites, right? And that was something that the carnivore people went off, the carnies, they went off on a, right? They're some of the most dogmatic people, but you're seeing that dogma arise with this sugar diet too, because it works for a few people. You are under eating nutrients, you're underachieving. Go back and look at the nutrient profile. Don't act like it's some psyop on you. What the human body needs from a sports science, sports nutrition, because people who think that they aren't needing to follow sports nutrition and they're like, oh, I'm not doing, it's like, do you understand the energy cost? You going from being obese to doing this VLCD or LCD, very calorie restricted nutrition plan, or just doing a standalone macronutrient? Do you understand that you need to read up on sports nutrition because your body is in greater demand now and you're needing to exercise? All these things have to take place, and if you can't do it, you're not getting the required nutrients, right? You're not getting it in. So I'm starting to get even thermic doing this casual walk and talking. And what primes me is right when I wake up, I do beef liver. Soon after, I am taking in a cup of coffee, or I prefer black tea, right? You can say, oh, that's a stimulant. Yeah. No matter what, I've always gone back to coffee and tea, and even when I don't need it, per se. No matter what the diet looks like, really. Because I've always had sleep problems, and it doesn't matter what I've done. If I'm gaining a shit ton of weight and taking in serotonin, right? But as soon as you just do a standalone, it doesn't work quite like that. But I'm not opposed to doing the sugar diet. Like I say, I'm not even opposed to doing PEDs. It's just being honest about it and covering all bases. It's looking into it and saying, these are the requirements. These are the upper needed requirements of what you're going to need to take in. Let's look at the profiles. This is what I did with my clients back in the day, right? Is I was purposefully combing over and looking at what the client's needs were, right? And I've learned a lot along the way. Most of that information wasn't available 10, 15 years ago. Going on 20, actually. So when these people's lives are in your hands, you really have to stay due diligence and stay with the up and coming information. But the problem herein lies is today we're under a barrage, a flood of falsified informations, and this gets into Peter Thiel, Elon Musk. Don't forget the connections with PayPal. Don't forget this weird homosexual cult that leads toward Gary Nolan and into what's his name, Alan Turing. That this is a psyop. You know, you go in and you study. Last name's Hayes, Hayes, Berkeley graduate. When I'm going through this flip and my blood flow is becoming systemic, my memory lapses, and then information just comes right back to me. I did this last time where I couldn't remember trimethylglycine, and I said, this will come back to me. The information just will come back rapidly. You have to look at, so this is another thing. It's like, oh no, it doesn't. I can think perfectly clearly. And it's like, when you eat, no matter what you eat, more blood flow goes down into your gastric area, or else you're not going to be able to digest properly. And what Durian Ryder is kind of reminding me of is a rabbit. I don't think that's a bad thing. He's always talking about humping like a rabbit. He's always talking about moving about like a rabbit. He's always darting about and sort of has this paranoid look in his eye, right? And it reminds me of some junkies that I knew, right? Where he's trying to get away with his stash and then run away before they discover him, right? And I don't think I don't know how bad his true personal life is, but I don't think he has any reason to do that, right? Everybody's on blast. Everybody's suspected. And especially when you're going into China, the MSS is watching your ass, dude. Don't lie to yourself about that. You go halfway around the world, the Mossad is going to be watching you. Travel further, the CIA is going to be watching you, right? Go the other way again, KGB's watching you. Operation Gladio, mofo. And it's all coming from the hip. It's all coming from the Knights of Malta that are running the banking industry, right? Through a lot of, they're above the Vatican because they're the ones who protect and store the wealth, right? That the Rothschilds are just bitches that kept just a fraction of this wealth, right? But to make it look like they had a ledger that existed outside of them, right? In order to rip us all off through the banking system, where you had the Pharisees and the Khazarian mafia come out of ancient Babylon, split off through the Sarmatians and the Ophites. This isn't a small-minded channel. This is the shit that really matters that you need to be looking more seriously at. Follow this shit, because you're going to be amazed how superficial Jennifer, like you're all a bunch of Jennifers and Kimmes, right? And they want to keep you in that state of mind. I mean, look at Jeff Bezos. You thought he was some complex character, didn't you? He's just a puppet. Elon Musk, you thought he was some complex genius character. He's just a puppet, right? This Palantir is the thing that needs to be looked at more seriously. The gay, like Seinfeld, the gay mob is a real thing. People laughed about that in the day. The soup Nazis and all that. And I don't think Seinfeld's far from it, or Larry David. I think those people are just fucked up, self-serving, self-preserving Jews, right? Look at the Talmud and tell me your religion is up and up. Oh, no, we don't. No. Yeah, you do. Just like the Christians. Look at your Old Testament and tell me, oh, no. We follow. Then you're not really Christian, are you? That's what Christian is. The Council of Nicaea, they set out the codices. There's 4 primary purposes. They want to exclude everything that has to do with reincarnation. I know the fucking drill. I've been studying this shit for 20 fucking years. These cats coming along, acting like they're finding new information. Yeah, I studied that. I studied the STS 1996, 10-mile long, right? NASA failed experiment when all these mile-long, half-mile-long, quarter-mile-long, single-celled organism, almost monad-looking creatures were just coming up in droves, and they're like, we got to pull this. Let's pretend we're just breaking this. And they were out there for 10, 12 days doing this shit before they did. But that's relevant. That's part of it. That's part of the cycle. It's part of how the cycle works. Why do you think, Diane Pasulka and all these sellout motherfuckers going back to Jacques Vallée, and you'll find pictures of Sammy Davis Jr., Jacques Vallée sucking fucking Anton LaVey's dick, sitting side by side with him. Well, what about this Jesse Michaels character, this gangly little puppet, that Peter Thiel's little puppet, huh? Isn't it disgusting that people don't know the connection with Jesse Michaels and Peter Thiel? Hello? You should be boycotting people, but you don't. You fed the Liver King into madness, and you love it. You love it. Am I subscribed to Liver King? No. Am I subscribed to Mr. Beast? No. It's not funny. You act like you want the information, you act like you're open to the information, then you act like a seeker, but you're just full of shit. You're the problem. You. Look at yourself in the mirror, but don't do it literally. Do it figuratively in your mind. Read a little bit of the Red Book, Carl Jung. Watch a little Uber Boyo. Maybe check out Break the Rules, or even better, go on the Gnostic Informant and look and listen to Neil. Go on to Ralph Ellis's channel. Listen to Michael Tessarian. These people are awake. Read some of Jason Reza Georgiani's information, and you'll understand what the fuck's going on in Iran and Iraq right now, dumbasses. Fuck, get to it. Then you'll understand what Prometheus means, and it won't be some obscure notion to you. Then you'll see how most of this comes right directly from Zoroastrianism, right? You'll see the Jainism. You'll see where all these things really are taking place and the truth that they want to block you from. And you're going to have to understand the algorithm in some perspective, in some way. But all you really need to see is the fear of the 5 formulation, the Fibonacci, the golden mean. Your body needs to become a representation of that. It's who you truly are. That's why when I've talked to these cats who are like 250, 300 plus pounds, who end up turning on you in the end, because you're getting in the way between what they think is them and their carbs and their feel-good nurturing aspect, but they won't do something like Durian Rider. So I understand where he's coming from, right? We're all dealing with abuses, and if you were to interview people's parents, you'd know them a lot better. You'd see what liars they are and the toxic formations of different mal-serving, mal-struck. That goes back to my writing. And Maleficent. Yeah, I mean Maleficent. Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. All the ties in with all these people. It's just crazy. The Scientology with like people who think that they're not involved in Scientology or they're not affiliated. They have to be affiliated. Right? It goes, I mean, David Berkowitz, Son of Sam, it all goes back to a central agency where they're going, okay, this is how it works. This is bizarre. Yeah. Why do you think Kabbalistic focuses on Babylonian lore with Tiamat, starting with Anu, the creator god, going on to Tiamat and Kingu, her son and her lover. And then you have to look at those who followed him. Those were probably all their offspring, the 11. The 11 named, the zigzag, the zigzag, right? You get into this, the decryption that John Dee got into, the hieroglyphic monad, Kelly, wife swappers. When you get into this stuff, or, Albert Bender and all the weird ass shit going on there, where you start to see this conjuring and this connection with the UFOs, the UAP, and what's really happening, on a spiritual scale. But a transcendental, transient scale. When you really stand up and you say, look, I brought the principles, I'm a station to the principles, I supplied a venue, I infected the AI with the principles, the principles cannot be forgotten, and the principle of purity is something that we demand. Not until you demand another way are we even going to be able to afford and press forward with technology, and that's what we're being pressed to do. It's like, are you still going to sacrifice animals and eat their beef livers? So do I feel sheepish saying that? Yeah. I feel terrible proselytizing something that's just perpetuating on. But when people try to put a guilt trip on other people about, oh, you should eat this, try getting old, right? And being broke and not being a sellout. For a good majority of the time, we're all sellouts, right? In some way or the other, at certain times in our lives. None of us can proclaim complete innocence nor purity, but you have to see it. And the people who exploit it, they're the ones who have the nice homes. They're the ones who are very well supplied financially. They think about themselves first, and there's no real self there. That's the irony, is that we are supposed to be preserving the one self. So when Sadi, the young Zoroaster, was fighting for this, right? The story of Ahura Mazda, Ahriman, depending on which one you follow. That's not necessarily the clean version that Jason Reza Georgiani talks about, but it shows you, right? You might see this influence with media, right? You might see this influence. He even talks about Satana, which is heavily likened to Mother Circe, right? The first witch, but the first witch when and where? Which witch is which? It's in the era, in the time, to bring the information here, to keep the Urubarus and Samsara active, to keep the chain of sacrifice going, right? And they act like, so it's like this question of, do you want to be the villain who sacrifices